What's up, guys? Welcome into another episode of the Wolverine Live Recruiting Show. It is our Tuesday show, and that means we have Zack Libby with us live from the road. He is in a parking lot or something outside of Ohio. He was seeing Michigan commit Luke Hamilton, who will be a big topic of today's recruiting show. Before we dive into today's show, I just want to bring you a word from our brand new sponsor, Vitamin Energy. Vitamin Energy is a powerful, naturally caffeinated energy shot that nourishes your body with vitamins, supports healthy weight loss, and boosts energy for 7+ hours with no jitters or sugar crash. Personal on my personal end, I've used Vitamin Energy for the last couple of weeks. It's definitely making a difference in my life. I'm looking at influencer boxers like Jake Paul, and I'm like, I can do that. Give me some Vitamin Energy, and I'll start rolling with it. Not very good to mention Jake Paul after the loss, but anyway, Vitamin Energy is definitely helping me. It's again a naturally caffeinated shot. It's gluten free, zero sugars and artificial flavors. There's something for everyone when it comes to Vitamin Energy. There's no crash. It supports gut health. It's energy with benefits. Let Vitamin Energy help you get through your day and be the best version of yourself. If you don't know what Vitamin Energy is, I just kind of gave a general rundown, but if you want more information on Vitamin Energy and how you can help yourself live a healthy life, go to vitaminenergy.com. And right now you can buy one, get one free using code Wolverine BOGO. All right, so that is our new sponsor, Vitamin Energy. I'm feeling the energy talking about such a great product. And now we will roll on to our show. A couple of things before we dive into this one. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, subscribe to the Wolverine.com today if you haven't already done so. All right, let's go ahead and talk about the new On3 rankings for the 2024 recruiting class. Definitely some controversy, and we're going to start off with the Michigan commits. We will talk about where those guys ended up and if we like where they ended up or not. Remember, guys, I do see a comment coming in. This is our Tuesday show. I will be back to answer all your questions tomorrow, but if you need a question answered, make sure to click the donate button, and it is a super chat that will help with our travel budget. That super chat will automatically appear on the screen and we will answer your question. So super chats only tonight, but let's go ahead and start off with the Michigan commits, where they ended up in the rankings. I think let's just knock the elephant in the room out of the way, especially since Zach was out there today. So like I said, Zach is pulled over somewhere in Ohio. Just saw former on 300 offensive lineman Luke Hamilton, one of the biggest fallers in the entire country, was previously ranked as the number 228 overall prospect in the country. Big time offensive lineman out of Avon, Ohio. And all of a sudden, you're scrolling through this list, and now you see him ranked as the number 38 interior offensive lineman in the country and the number 33 overall recruit in the state of Ohio. So Luke Hamilton literally dropped hundreds of spots outside of the top 300 completely. As you can see here on our industry comparison tool over at On3, three of the four major recruiting sites have Luke Hamilton ranked as a top 10 player in the state of Ohio and as a 4-star prospect, On3 being the only one that really is not enamored with Luke Hamilton, to put it nicely. Now, Zach, like I said, you were in Ohio. You just saw Luke Hamilton. You also spoke to On3 rankings director Charles Power about this massive drop. What are your general thoughts on the Luke Hamilton tumble?
I mean, I think it's kind of obvious. There's no way there's 32 players in Ohio, let alone that are better than Luke Hamilton on the field, and then 38, 37 interior offensive linemen in the country that are better than Luke Hamilton. I mean, you can check out the article that I did with Charles Powers, who's the director of scouting and rankings, and you can take his answer for what it is. But after seeing him live, and what he did today was just conditioning training. So he was working indoors with his football team, but 6'4", 370 pounds right now. He's looking to drop it to 85 before the season. Very agile, able to keep 307 pounds very well. Very balanced, very flexible. There's one drill where they were doing bear crawls, and then you had to go into like a somersault, and he did it with ease. Like he can, very, very very smooth in terms of just being able to get his knees up in the air, fast feet. Like I said, very mobile, very balanced. So that's just based on what I've seen live on film. I think everyone has seen his mauler in the run game. Very, I guess, a team captain, a leader, someone who can go into Michigan's system under Sharon Moore and be that, help win another Joe Moore Award. I don't know. We didn't really get an explanation as to why he dropped, and I don't think we have an answer as to why either. So I don't know. I think it's the comment. One of the comments under our video is, not tolerating Luke Hamilton disrespect, and I sort of agree. I don't really understand why. I don't really understand. I think everyone else has a proper ranking for him. I think we're just the anomaly.
Yeah, I think with what Zach was able to say there in terms of not having an explanation, it's true. I mean, we don't have any real input when it comes to the rankings. We get a spreadsheet like 2 days before the rankings are released, and are like, here you go, write some stories on this. So yeah, it's not like we had any say on it. But look, I agree with the other three major recruiting services. I think Luke Hamilton is a 4-star prospect all the way. I think ESPN, which is kind of random to say since, ESPN gets the most flack out of the 4 services. I think ESPN has it right. I'd say Luke is somewhere in that 240-ish range. Look, he is what he is, man. He's 6'4", 6'4.5", 290 pounds, probably closer to 300 by now. And he's an absolute mauler. He's a road grader in the run game. He's a perfect fit for what Michigan wants to do. He's a Big Ten offensive lineman all the way. He is a guy that was very wanted by Wisconsin as well. In fact, he visited Wisconsin in January. But, Michigan obviously has one of the best offensive lines in the country and had the best offensive line in the country over the last 2 seasons. I think Hamilton is a fit for what Sharon Moore wants at the guard position. And when we are evaluating Luke Hamilton, we're looking at him strictly as a guard, right? Like, if he's a little weak in pass pro, that's fine with me. He's an interior offensive lineman. I mean, I'll cut him some flack there. I want to see him bullying people, putting guys in the dirt, finishing blocks, doing it with authority. And that's what Luke Hamilton films. You pull up the Luke Hamilton film, it's him just physical run blocking all day long for those, however long the huddle reel is. Those highlights just show him putting guys in the dirt over and over in the run game. So, he's on brand with what Michigan wants. And look, Sharon Moore isn't a fool. He knows how to evaluate offensive line talent. I think he made Luke Hamilton a priority for a reason and, took him early. I mean, this is a guy that Sharon Moore really wanted and made a press for and got him on board. I mean, he really values what Luke Hamilton can bring to the table. And you see him there getting out in space, showing the film, putting guys in the dirt. And that's all you see. And like Zach said, he's working on getting more nimble with his feet. I can see that he's a little heavy footed. That's fine. He still has a year to get quicker. And a little more athletic, and he will do that once he kind of rebuilds his body in the Michigan Strength and Conditioning program, where Ben Herbert does get you more explosive, where he does get you faster, where he does maximize your body. But you see the natural road grading mentality, the physicality, the brute strength over and over. These clips are just him putting guys in the dirt, just bodying people. So I'm not really sure if you're a ranker at any of the recruiting services, what you expect to see from a straight up interior offensive lineman. But that's kind of my thoughts on the Luke Hamilton drop. I wish we would have had a better explanation on the Luke Hamilton drop, because it's fine. Rankings are subjective, right? You're not going to agree with every ranking. But, if you really want to, pick apart Luke Hamilton's games and say he's not great at pass pro, he plays really high, as you can see in some of these clips. He has a bit of heavy feet early on. He's not super athletic, pulling or getting to the next level. These are all fair criticisms, right? But lay that out. Explain why you had such a massive dropping going from number 282 in the country to a middling 3-star and not even in the top 30 in the state of Ohio. It's pretty wild to me. But like I said, that's pretty much all I have to say on the Luke Hamilton drop. I do think Luke Hamilton is still a 4-star. I do think that, getting in with Sharon Moore Herbert is really going to help some of the faults that I talked about here today. Anything else you want to add on Luke Hamilton, Zach, before we move on to some of the other Michigan commits?
Yeah, I think he's obviously the most active recruiter among the 7 commits. I mean, if anybody follows him on social media, he is making sure that anyone in Ohio and any offensive line target that Michigan is going after continues to have interest in Michigan. I mean, I've talked to him after his workout, and he was saying he was listing all these kids that he reaches out to on DMs and texts and calls, and all the friendships that he has. Like, I think we all know what he can bring as a player, but I think him as a leader of the class early, and then being a quote unquote Michigan man, I think Luke Hamilton epitomizes that role. So I think he's just going to be a fan favorite early on.
Definitely. Let's go ahead and and the thing is, guys, like, we're gonna shoot it to you straight, man. Like, we work for On3, but we can also disagree with On3 at the same time. We don't have to value their rankings, as long as we don't have to, um, be mouthpieces and say the rankings are 1,000% correct. We can give and take our and do it in a respectful manner. But let's go ahead and talk about some of the other commits. Now, On3 did bump some Michigan commits. The highest rated commit in the class, and this is right here, producer Hutch has pulled up the industry ratings, which is a whole different subject for another day. But the industry ratings show a combined percentage of the 4 major recruiting services. The actual highest rated commit on 3's own rankings is Mason Curtis, 4-star linebacker out of Nashville Ensworth, who moved up 15 spots, I believe, to the number 128 prospect nationally. On3 has him ranked the highest out of any of the 4 major recruiting services. ESPN has him as a top 200 player, and 24/7 and Rivals both have him as a low 4-star. Now, both I believe Zach has also seen Mason Curtis live. I've seen Mason, or I guess Zach has not seen Mason Curtis live.
I have not. No.
I have seen Mason Curtis live, so I guess I'll start off with my take on this one first. I am a big Mason Curtis fan. I think the answer for some of these ratings discrepancies is somewhere in the middle. I think he's probably between a 200 and 225 level prospect. And that's me going with a lower baseline, because Curtis is such a dangerous prospect to rate. And when I say that, I mean that he has a huge upside, but he is also a man without a position. He's 6'4", 190 pounds. And he is really thin and lanky. And when you look at him from a frame standpoint, you're intrigued with the length, you're intrigued with the height, but you're like, man, this kid needs to really hit the weight room, especially if he's going to be a linebacker, which he's listed at. Now, Michigan is recruiting him more as an edge. On his latest visit in January, he spent most of his time with Dylan Roney in the edge room. So Michigan now looking him there. But this is a guy that can play everywhere. It depends on where his body takes him. When you look at his skill set, it's terrific. This is a guy that can get sideline to sideline. He can cover. I even saw him play corner in the game that I went to out in Nashville. I like him as a bigger safety linebacker hybrid, like one of those I don't remember exactly what Gary Patterson used to call it, but I think it was like the star position in a 4-2-5, that safety hybrid linebacker. That's exactly what I see Mason Curtis eventually becoming. But like I said, Michigan recruiting him more as an edge, which means they're going to try to add some really good weight on him. Now at 190, like I said, he's very, very thin. He does have the frame to carry a legit like 40 pounds. The athletic ability's there. The speed is there. But how his body adapts to added weight, where his body takes him, things of that nature, I think make him a really intriguing prospect and also a developmental prospect, but a guy that has a lot of tools that isn't necessarily raw from a technical standpoint. Just a guy that right now you're like, that's a really good football player on the defensive side of the ball, and we need to figure out what he is. So for that reason, I'm a little lower than On3 is, but I can definitely buy why they're so high on Mason Curtis. Anything you want to add on Mason Curtis, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, he's just a unique player because he has the length and the pass rush ability to be slotted down to the edge, or you can even play nickel, as you mentioned. Like, I think, we've talked about Jason Hewlett in the last class where he was a man without a position. He could be that versatile weapon. I think Mason Curtis is the same thing, except the one difference is that I think Hewlett is a little bit bigger at this point, where he was, what Curtis was. So I think this is just this would be a proven job for Ben Herbert to find where his true position is once he gets to college, whether it's secondary or dropping down to the trenches. I think that's the unique part. It's going to be fun to see how he molds himself into it.
Let's go ahead and move on to two of the biggest risers in the On3 rankings, two other Michigan commits. You had Hogan Hansen, now a 4-star tight end out of the Pacific Northwest, vault all the way from outside of the top 300 to the number 176 recruit nationally. Hansen is another interesting prospect in the class. He's a guy that I expected to get a rankings bump. I'm not sure if I expected him to go this high. You look at the industry comparison tool, and Hansen is ranked as a top 150 player by 24/7, a top 200 player by On3, and a top 300 player by ESPN. Rivals has him as a low 4-star. I find myself kind of chuckling that I'm agreeing with ESPN so much, but I think ESPN probably has it right with Hansen, probably in the 250-ish range. What I really like about Hansen is even though he's only listed at 200 pounds, he's a really physical blocker. He's definitely more of a true inline tight end than Deacon Tonielli and Zach Marshall were last cycle. He spends a lot of time in line as opposed to flex out, and his team runs the ball a lot. Like they pound the rock. And so he's a consistent blocker. He's a guy that likes to definitely mix it up. Now, with that, we don't really see what his ability is as a pass catcher. We don't see him running a ton of routes. We don't see him catching a lot of passes. And even in Zach's interview with Charles Power, On3's ranking director, he kind of admitted that they're having to do their own projection. Now, I don't really love projecting skill sets without evidence. So Hansen's a guy that I would really like to see, at some of these off-season events or potentially in the game, just because I want to learn more about him as a pass catcher. But I really like the frame. I really like the willingness to block. And Michigan obviously is very tight end friendly and will get the most out of Hogan Hansen. Now, I'm going to throw it to you, Zach, for a different prospect so we can kind of speed up the show here a little bit. Jacob Oden moved up 49 spots. Michigan's legacy recruit is now ranked inside the top 200, 4-star defensive back out of Harper Woods, in-state guy, son of Rod Oden, who was a walk-on fullback for the Wolverines in the 90s. I just saw Jacob Oden over the weekend, and he is arguably the safest take in this class. He might not have the upside of some of these other guys, but he has a really high floor. You know what you're getting in Jacob Oden, so why don't you tell us what Michigan fans should expect out of Jacob Oden, Zach?
Yeah, I think he would be the perfect complement piece at the nickel or cornerback. 6'3", 107 is the last time I've talked to him, in which that was his weight was at. I think he's just a guy that bleeds Michigan. Obviously, you just said his father graduated from Michigan. He played on the team. His mother went to Michigan. So did his aunts and uncles. I think he's a fourth generation Michigan student. Growing up 45 minutes away from Ann Arbor, you understand the traditions and the history and everything about it. I think his relationship with Coach Klingsdale goes back to when Jacob was like a toddler. So that role that Klingsdale has made, which he's sort of like an uncle figure to Jacob, I think means a lot as well. And I mean, like, I don't think carrying on the legacy was something that he is going to say out loud, but I mean, I know his father has said, I think it means a great deal that he's able to carry on follow in his family's footsteps, and get that Michigan degree. As a player, I mean, I think you know what you're going to get out of him, and I think it's just fluidity, high level IQ. I think him as a center fielder, he's probably the best one that I've seen live in the 7-on-7 circuit. I think as a representative of the state of Michigan, I think Michigan could have landed a better prospect moving forward. So I think his bumping up was well deserved, and where he's at right now, I think that's perfect for him.
Yeah, and I mean, he's an easy prospect to grade. I'll just add, when you look at the industry comparison tool over at On3, everybody has him in the same range between a top 150 and a top 200 player. So that's exactly what you're getting in Jacob Oden. That's why I said he has such a high floor. You know what you're getting with this guy. He's just a really, really good football player that knows the game so well, being a coach's son. I had more thoughts over on Jacob Oden at the Wolverine. Like I said earlier, if you're not a subscriber to thewolverine.com, definitely do so today. Last commit we'll hit on before we move on to some of the targets. We are running a little low on time, so trying to expedite this, is Zack Ludwig. One of the biggest mysteries of the 2024 recruiting class. Zack Ludwig was basically an unknown. His commitment went untraced. He kind of popped up and is new to a lot of people. Both On3 and 24/7 have given him a 3-star rating. He's ranked now on the industry ranking tool, which uses a combination of different percentages of the 4 major recruiting services. He is now ranked as the number 868 overall recruiting in the country. Now, while that might not seem super high, to put it in context for you, Zack Ludwig is now ranked higher than 6 of Michigan's signees in the 2023 recruiting class, including intriguing athlete Kendrick Bell, tackling machine Hayden Moore. I mean, it's a really interesting rating. I think when you pull up Zack Ludwig's film, it leaves a lot to be desired. Obviously, he has a connection to Michigan strength and conditioning coach Ben Herbert, and I think that was, a reason Michigan jumped on him early and took his commitment. But his film is very rough. I think he could end up being a long snapper, which is something he's done in the past at Michigan. I think he has a long way to go as a linebacker. And I said this on Twitter earlier in the week. There are way too many 3-stars. I think last year it was like anybody rated from like 400 to 2,000 for 3 stars, and that's absolutely absurd. I think Zack Ludwig is a 2-star level guy, which, isn't terrible. Maybe Michigan can get the most out of him, especially with him being related to Ben Herbert. Maybe he'll get pushed a lot more in the strength and conditioning program, but I think this is a very big project take for the Wolverines. Were you surprised that On3 gave him a 3-star ranking, Zach, and not just a 3-star ranking. They didn't make him a low 3-star. They actually made him a mid 3-star.
I mean, I wasn't surprised about the 3-star because I mean, I know like there's no such thing as a 2-star anymore. So it's either 3-star is like the floor. So that's the lowest he's going to get. I mean, he's such a hard prospect to really fully give an evaluation of because one, no one has seen him. No one has seen him live. He has a 6-minute highlight film that which half of it is him playing quarterback and lawn snapper. Of those highlights of him playing linebacker, I mean, I think his biggest attribute is just being a team player and a leader. A lot of kids really cling on to him as the person of example, the person who can get the troops rallied and to lead comebacks. As negatives, obviously he needs to coverage in the flats, coverage in the curls, balance, speed, weight, height, angles of pursuits. There's so much to be desired that it makes it so much exciting really to go out there and evaluate him in person. Like I think in the fall, I would think both of us would just want to go out there just to give our own separate respective opinions. But I think as the spring goes on, I think there's a lot that he needs to focus on in terms of development. Obviously, he has several more months to get in the weight room and focus on baseball as well. So there's a lot to. I think he has a lot of expectations for Michigan fans to really set the notion that he belongs in this class, and that's not really a knock on him either because Michigan took him with open arms. So we'll see what Michigan saw in him because we all we have is a 6-minute highlight film.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, Michigan has more access to full game films and things of that nature that aren't easily accessible on the internet. But it is important for us to go out and evaluate Zack Ludwig. I'm really intrigued by what Ludwig will look like once we do go out and get a proper live evaluation, just because you can't tell much from the huddle tape. The 2-star thing is a completely different argument. I feel like in this day and age with recruiting services, nobody wants to be wrong. Everybody wants to have the best rankings. And so they give 3 stars to everybody. So you don't have 2 stars like Travis Kelce popping up or something like that, which is dumb. Like if you're wrong, you're wrong. I think there should be 2 stars. And I think Zack Ludwig is probably in that 2-star mold. But the 2-star thing is another argument for another day. Kind of leave it at that. I think Ludwig right now, I just see him as a guy that will play a lot on special teams, potentially being that long snapper guy. We'll see if he really does make a leap as a senior. Maybe he shocks us all and is a really improved player. You never know. I mean, I'll show you an example. I mean, I saw Deion Walker when he was a sophomore, and I was like, man, this guy's terrible. and Deion was cool about it. And I just kind of ripped him to shreds in my first eval. I was like, Deion Walker is not a Michigan caliber guy. And as the years progressed, I became a huge Deion Walker fan. I think by the end of the cycle, I had Deion Walker graded as like a top 150 prospect nationally. I called him the most improved recruit I've ever covered in my entire decade long of doing this. And Deion Walker was a first team freshman All-American at Kentucky this season. So very proud of Deion. Maybe Ludwig goes that route. Maybe he doesn't. We'll see. I mean, he remains the mystery man in this class, and he's a guy we will continue to evaluate and keep track of. All right, guys, we are running short on time. I do want to remind you guys, or not remind you guys, I do want to bring you guys another word from a different sponsor. We want to take a moment to shout out our Tuesday night recruiting show sponsor and longtime partner of the Wolverine in Lewis Jewelers. Simple question, guys. Is your daughter's engagement ring bigger than your wife's? If the answer is yes, great news. Lewis Jewelers is here to help. It's stress-free and easy working with one of their non-commissioned expert trusted advisors. finding that perfect diamond. So stop by today and fix any family issue you may have. Lewis Jewelers, your diamond store, and so much more since 1921. Visit them at their new location, 300 South Maple Road, Ann Arbor, or online at lewisjewelers.com. That's lewisjewelers.com. That's where Ann Arbor gets engaged. All right. I mean, I was probably the wrong guy to have that read. Maybe they'll give me a different one, but I will say I'll make it up to Lewis Jewelers and say that I got my engagement ring at Lewis Jewelers. It was very nice. They treat Michigan fans and riders extremely well. So make sure to hit up Lewis Jewelers for all your ring needs, even if you don't have a daughter with a bigger engagement ring than your wife. It's just a great place to get jewelry in general. How about that? We do have a super chat from Nick, $9.99. So big fat super chat. Where's our Ric Flair gif? Hutch, our producer, has fallen asleep on the job, or maybe he's out at Lewis Jewelers shopping for diamonds. All right, there we go. He's got it. He's got it on lock. Nick says, why is Davis dragging things time after time? Damn it, Jaden Davis, make a decision. I like Campbell reaching out to other quarterbacks, but isn't it time for Michigan to put the full court press on Michael Van Buren? So like I said, guys, we're running short on time, but we do want to get to Nick's super here. So we'll go a little bit longer today, much to the dismay of our producer. Anyway, I feel like yeah, he's upset. He wants to go home. It's time for him to clock out. Look, with Jaden Davis, I think there's gonna be a time this coming month in March. I mean, tomorrow's March, basically. There's gonna be a time in March where Jaden Davis does visit. I expect him to get back on campus. There's no date set, but I do expect him, Channing Goodwin, Jordan Shipp to all make it back to campus here in March. If Michigan does not close with Jaden Davis on this March visit, and I know I feel like I sound like a broken record because I said this on the previous visit, I believe, but with Harbaugh staying, with Kirk Campbell now in place as the quarterbacks coach, with Sharon Moore getting bumped up to the sole OC, and some changes going on there. All right, we'll give Jaden Davis a break. But if Michigan cannot close with Jaden Davis on this visit in March, then at that point, I do feel like they will actually expand the board more and actually recruit other guys. And I think that's evidenced by the fact that Kirk Campbell has already established contact with some of these other 2024 quarterbacks. He's given them follows on social media. He actually did have a brief conversation with Michael Van Buren. So if Jaden Davis doesn't commit in March, which he's pushed back his timeline, the past couple months, remember it was December, then it could have been January, and now it's whenever I feel like it. If it doesn't happen in March, I think at that point, they're finally going to say, all right, let's get some other quarterbacks on the board. One that helps push Jaden Davis to make a decision because he's not the only fish in the sea. And two, it gives you other options. And it isn't as strong of a quarterback year as it was last cycle. So you need to go after some of these other guys, like maybe Michael Van Buren, and everybody knows how much I like Michael Van Buren, but don't just limit yourself to Michael Van Buren. Offer 3 or 4 other guys. Give yourself other options. Isaac Wilson's visited in the past as well. There are some other quarterbacks that I'm sure would be interested in Michigan. So, I mean, kudos to Campbell for getting a contingency plan ready to go in case they can't close with Davis. In terms of why Davis is dragging it out, I think, I'm not sure. I know that obviously Harbaugh had the NFL flirtations again, and you did have a quarterback coaching change, but I mean, I'm not sure what else Michigan really needs to show on this visit to put them over the hump. But I do think it does come down to Harbaugh sealing the door himself on this trip. And if he decides he wants to go out and visit Ohio State and he wants to see Clemson again and things of that nature, then, you have to, especially after last cycle. getting another project quarterback that's back-to-back years. I mean, you cannot leave yourself empty-handed at the most important position in college football, even with the transfer portal readily available. Anything to add on that, Zach?
I think it's just, I think it's kind of funny that 2024 quarterback recruiting is so much different than 2025 quarterback recruiting for Michigan. Like, we're talking about Jane Davis potentially committing this spring after months of doing so, but then in 2025, you have 3 of the top quarterbacks already set their visit date for next month. So, I mean, I think Kirk Campbell's gotten a lot of praise from us, early praise from us for his efforts and initiative to, keep in contact with these guys, circling back to Michael Van Buren and all that stuff. So, I mean, I think I know that Jane Davis had a great relationship with Matt Weiss, but I think Kirk Campbell's enthusiasm might make a difference, as this continues. And obviously, we know that Harbaugh talked to Jane and his family last month. So I think it's just setting up for a commitment if it happens. If it doesn't, like you said, you got to go expand other quarterbacks. So kudos to the staff for at least, if they do end up doing this early, kudos to them.
Definitely. So appreciate Nick for that super chat that goes directly to our travel budget to help us get around and see recruits across the country. All right, let's go ahead and wrap it up, Zach. We are way over time. So we've hit on all the Michigan commits in their rankings. Very quickly, name a couple prospects that you were happy to see rise in the rankings or drop in the rankings in terms of Michigan targets.
Justin Scott is finally a 5-star after months of not being one, which was ridiculous. I think Justin Scott is my number one player in the 2024 class, and I've thought that for ever since I first met him in May. He is the most agile, powerful, just dominating force that I've seen at 6'5" and 310 pounds. He is rightfully a 5-star. And then finally, another Chicago kid I just saw, Austin Alexander, who just got offered by Steve Klingsdale last month. He is in the on 300, and Michigan is working to get him for a visit. So good find for Klingsdale and defensive coordinator Jesse Minter to offer right before he finally gets his accolades.
Definitely. I will give you one that I absolutely hate, and that is Aaron Childs dropping from inside the, I believe, top 125 to now being ranked as the number 233 overall prospect in the country, the number 19 linebacker in the country. That's terrible. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. Aaron Childs, I mean, go watch him in person, please. He is and I said the same thing about Junior Colson. Can we just go watch this man in person? I mean, it's hard to find Junior Colson type linebackers, and Aaron Childs mimics Colson to a T. He's a bigger, filled out guy that can run sideline to sideline. He's a hammer truck in the middle. He's extremely physical. He'll smack people. He diagnoses what the offense is trying to do in quick fashion. He's a really intelligent kid off the field and a really intelligent kid on the field. He's great in pass coverage. I first saw him at the Ray Lewis camp last year, where he was asked to do a lot of pass coverage drills, and he was very impressive in that. I saw him in game this year, and he just checked all the boxes. And when you look at Childs' film, keep in mind he's been against the best in the DMV. Good counsel plays in toughest leagues in the entire country, and Aaron Childs is a dominant force in the middle of the defense. So I don't know who these 18 linebackers are in front of Aaron Childs, but I do believe Aaron Childs is a top 5 linebacker in the country. I think Jesse Minter is making him a top priority and has made him a top priority for a reason. Jesse Minter, being around the NFL, knows what an NFL style linebacker looks like, and that's why Childs is such a huge priority for the Wolverines this cycle. Rankings drop that I agree with. We will go back to Jaden Davis, dropping from the number 67 overall recruit to the number 105 overall recruit. I think that is a very accurate ranking. And I actually think that the Charles Power explanation that he gave to you, Zach, in that story was accurate. As Providence Day this year, we saw Jaden Davis improved some of his accuracy issues that he displayed as a sophomore, but he was more of a distributor at the quarterback position. He had a lot of weapons in Channing Goodwin, Jordan Shipp, Chris Peel. Georgia Pledge at corner was the starting running back and a really great high school running back as well. So he had a lot more weapons around him. I still think, there are some concerns about Davis's height and not exactly being a true mobile quarterback. I still think he has some control issues at time. While that accuracy improved, sometimes he can throw balls in the dirt. He can sail some passes. It has a little bit of a baseball pitcher-esque type of release. And so those are things that can be easily fixed at the next level. Now, dropping Jaden Davis to number 105 is certainly not an insult. Just because I don't view Jaden Davis as a 5-star, does not mean I don't think he's a very good prospect. So some things that really stand out to me about Davis is the command of the offense, is that pocket presence. He's a guy that stands in that pocket. Doesn't matter what's coming at him from a rush standpoint, and he delivers. And he delivers strikes. He has really good arm talent as well. He has great feet in the pocket. He's really knowledgeable. He's a fierce competitor. I mean, I saw him in a game where he was throwing up on the field and led his team to victory. So there are a lot of things I like about Jaden Davis as well. Now, I don't think he has the ceiling of a Michael Van Buren, but I definitely think he has a higher floor than Michael Van Buren. And contrary to popular belief, I would grade Jaden Davis and Michael Van Buren right in the same tier, right around where On3 has Jaden Davis. I think Davis was ranked extremely high as an underclassman, and it's oftentimes tough to live up to that type of expectation when you've been recruited as an 8th grader and you're ranked as a 5-star guy so early. But I think number 105 is just fine for Jaden Davis. He has his limitations, but there's also a lot to like about him as well. So that's kind of my 2 cents on the targets. For more Michigan recruiting information and thoughts on all the rankings and intel, make sure to subscribe to the Wolverine.com. Big shout out to our new sponsor, Vitamin Energy, and our continued sponsor, Lewis Jewelers. Appreciate you guys for joining us, and join me tomorrow on the YouTube show for my recruiting Q&A.